Hey, it's Becky from Patchwork Posse, and today we are going to take a look at pre-printed half square triangle paper that you can use to make perfect half square triangles every time using strips of fabric. We are going to sew half square triangles really quickly using this half square triangle paper template. So this comes in a roll, and you can buy it in different sizes and stuff. The one that I have is for a finished 3-inch half square triangle. This makes piecing these super quick. Really, it is just kind of similar to paper piecing, where you are going to follow the arrows and you are going to stitch right on that stitch line. On the printed paper is also the information that you're going to need. So if you unroll this and you're just not sure what size, just read it and it will tell you. So this one says cut fabric 8 inches wide. And then you can do it by the length of fabric or that you need. So each of these squares is going to give you 2 half square triangles. And so you can go as long as you want, as long as it's 8 inches wide. So I have my piece pre-cut, and so depending on how many half square triangles you have, you can make your strip longer. So I have my fabric cut in 8 inches, and then I did cut this just a little bit longer than what I need, but I've got 4 blocks across the top, 4 at the bottom, and we are just going to pin this in place so it doesn't shift. And what I want to make sure is that I don't pin where I'm going to be sewing. And where I'm going to be sewing is on these dashed lines. So just put a couple pins in here to keep our layers together properly. It does say lay your 2 fabrics right sides together. So I have batik fabric and it doesn't really matter on this print. So I've just got them laid together, and the next thing we're going to do is take it to the sewing machine, and we are going to start at one corner or the other. You're going to start and then follow these arrows. When you hit an intersection, so if I'm stitching on this dotted line, I'm going up, and then right when I hit that, I want to leave my needle in the down position, pivot my fabric so it's going in the correctest direction from my needle, and then continue stitching on that dotted line. Now, if I am going to do more than 1 block, then I can follow this line up, down, all the way down, and then go up. And then I can go all the way back down. So kind of look ahead as to where you're going. And then you don't have to cut your thread or stop at, the end of here. If it's easier for you to do that, go right ahead. But this really does allow you to sew continuously. So when we get to the end, we can just continue following the arrows. All right, so I've put my needle at the beginning of this dotted line or dashed line. I changed my thread, the stitch length, so it's a little bit smaller, so it'll perforate my paper. And I am just going to follow the arrows. When I get to the end, I can just stitch right along this if I want. And then leaving my needle in the down position, I'm going to lift my presser foot and make the pivot and continue sewing. I'm actually going to stop here because I'm at my start again, and I can either cut my thread or I can go to this point and then follow that line. So I'm just going to go to that point, and I am going to just put my needle down, pivot the rest of this, and continue sewing on the line. Is that not slick or what? So I'm going to remove my pins. Now what I'm going to do is cut first on these solid lines. The diagonal lines have been secured by the seams that you just sewed. So what we want to do is cut our solid lines that are vertical and horizontal first, because we don't want those to shift, and they're more than likely to shift if you cut them last. So I'm just going to line up my ruler right against that line, and I am going to cut it. Just going to continue that with all the vertical lines, and then I will go back and do my horizontal lines. I recommend cutting these individually, not stacking them. That's the easiest way and most accurate. So now I've got the vertical one done, and I can go, while I've got this, and trim the diagonal. I'm not going to worry about squaring this up quite yet or trimming off this excess, because that will happen when I square these up. So I am just going to continue trimming my half squares or the diagonal lines after that vertical line is done. And if you don't trim it directly on that line, don't worry, you are going to be squaring these up. So just get as accurate as you can, because the next step after we remove the paper is going to be when we square these up. All right, with this all trimmed, we've cut all of our lines. Now we need to remove our paper. Now we can do this a couple ways. You can just go ahead and fold your paper back on that sewn line. And by doing that, and then I'm just going to fold it this way, I'm going to take my seam paper and I'm going to fold it the other way. By doing that, you kind of put a crease and weaken that paper. Then I'm just going to hold the top with one of my fingers, because I don't want, when I pull on this, I don't want to pull on that end seam. I did not do a stay stitch. I did not go back and forth right there. So if I pull on this, I don't want my seams to come out. And so I'm just going to carefully remove my paper on one side. And now I can grab the paper and kind of scratch at it if you have a fingernail, or just pick at it with your finger. And now my paper is removed. So again, I just folded these and then, did a little bit of finger pressing on this. Then I'm going to hold the one end of my paper as I remove the one side, because I don't want to weaken the stitches that I have. And now I can kind of pull back on the paper there. Now, another way to remove your paper is to use a water pen. So this is Foundation Piecing Water Pen by Carolina Moore. And this is something you should probably put in your sewing room, like ASAP. So this is a kind of a felt tip. You fill this area with water. You put your top back on, and now what I'm going to do is just draw on this seam. So I'm going to draw on the seam, I'm going to set it aside and draw on a second one, because I really want that water to absorb right into the paper. And as you can see, it's kind of discolored it a little bit. It's just water. It doesn't hurt anything. Now, when I pull on this paper, it seriously just dissolves the paper. It doesn't pull your stitches. It just makes it, look how easily this comes out. So easy. So easy. I love this water pen. So, and if it dries before you get to it, then just run the water pen on it again. Like, If you run into a little bit of harder places, you can use the water pen to just weaken that paper and remove it. The water pen works both for this paper as well as just regular copy paper. So it doesn't have to be this printed special paper, which is already a little thinner. It doesn't have to be. So there we go. So that's how you do half square triangles with this. And I'm still going to hold the end of that seam because I don't want to pull my threads. If there's anything left, we can just grab it. If you've got some tweezers, you can grab those. So now I'm going to take these over to the ironing board, and you are going to press these open so we can get them ready for squaring up. All right, I have my half square triangles ready to square up. The ruler I'm going to use is the Block Lock ruler. I love this ruler. It works out so great. This is, I believe, the 5.5 inch ruler. They come in different sizes. I found this one the most versatile as far as I can do smaller than 5.5 inches. And it's just super easy to use. It has a channel. So as you can see, it's flat on the bottom except for in this channel. And this channel is going to be where your seam gets tucked right into it. So I have pressed my seam to the dark side. And I am going to turn my ruler until I have the top right side and the top lined up. So if I try to do it this way, my channel is not going to be in here correctly. So just kind of flip around and play with the ruler until it's correct. Now this says that it's going to be 3.5 or 3 inch finished, which means that I need to trim these to 3.5 inches. So I've got my channel locked, I've got it all butted up nicely, and now I can just trim off the tiny excess that I have on the two sides. Then I am going to flip this right over, and I'm going to repeat this for the other side. So I'm going to line up my left side and my bottom because I know these are accurate, and I can trim off the top and the right side again. So if you're left-handed, you probably would do that a little bit backwards. And if you have a rotating cutting mat, this works great on there as well, which I have one, but I don't have it out, so I am just going to continue this. So I need to trim these up to 3.5, which will finish to be 3 inches. So just double check your measurements and then continue to square up. But this is how you use that pretty slick pre-printed half square triangle paper.